you down right now with SEC stories every play, every time with Rob Browne breaking it all down. Yeah. SEC Sideline Sports on my mind. Rob Browne calling game time, highlight shine, executive mind. Brendan Martin keeping Rob in line. Like, subscribe, share it, tell everyone. Sideline Sports, y'all come back real soon. Same place, same time, same tune.
Good morning, Mr. Browne.
Good morning. It is a great day here in Memphis, in the Mid-South, all over the South, all over the country, and hell, all over the world. Thank you, Internet. We got people watching from everywhere. Brendan Martin, executive producer down in Ocala.
That's right. Throw it in the chat. Where are you from today?
Yeah, I like that. Put it on the chat. Got questions. We've got one of the best. This is someone that I really love the work that he does. Seth Emerson of The Athletic, great writer, true grit journalist, wrote a great, do you call it a piece, a story? I call it a column in The Athletic this week about 2014 playoff pushback from the SEC. And I tell you what, you think you want to get rid of these conference championship games? I'm going to let Seth tell you what that'll cost. Do us a favor, take a picture with the QR code, streaming live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. We do it every day, all day, and nobody outworks us. Seth Emerson, good morning. And, you know, when you read a great story, and Brendan's dad, Buddy Martin's a great sports writer, been doing it a long time. I appreciate it. Dad being an architect and an artist, I have such an appreciation for engineers, architects, and art. True grit journalism like what you do, the amount of time that you spent to put that story together is about like making a presentation to a Fortune 500 CEO. It is great work. Stuff in there. I just had a football coach who coached with Notre Dame a long time, called me before the show and said, can't wait to hear what Seth says. So good morning.
Well, I mean, keep going. Like how long? Let me see if I can call my editors and see if they can log on and watch and just keep keep talking. I can't I can't do any better. No. I mean, I've been doing this a long time. I've written a lot of stories. It's old hat at this point. So it's an interesting time to. It's been an interesting time to cover college sports, and it just always is, and it's always something going on, and this is it now. This kind of stare down between the Big Ten and the SEC on a playoff. It continues. This time last year, the Big Ten was alone, and the SEC ended up siding with the other conferences. So they end up staying at 12 because no one could agree on which 16-team format to go to. This time, Big Ten says, let's go to 24. Now everyone else has hopped on board, and the question is whether the SEC is going to hop on board.
And Commissioner Sankey has 50%, I guess, of the voting shares in this deal, and 50% with the Big Ten. Kind of talk about, too, how much people feel like Greg Sankey caved in on going to 9 conference games, but he's not doing this, and he's also not giving up Friday nights.
I've heard that about caving on going to 9. He wanted to go to 9 for a while, and the SEC got more money to do that, and that's what teams were going in that direction to do anyway. People are going to tend to go away from easy schedules, from having 3 guarantee games. This was. And the SEC was kind of boxed in because they had been shamed for years by the Big Ten and then people in other conferences, not the ACC, because they also were only at 8 for a while. And this was it was something that was overdue. I thought they were going to go to 9 games I think it was in Destin in 2022. And it took them 3 years to land the plane. Now they finally are. But there has been enough pushback since then. It's mainly been from fans, a little bit from coaches, but it's not even so much the SEC itself doing 9 games. It's that they kept their requirement on another game on top of that. So now everybody's at 10 games, 10 power conference games. And there's worry about whether that's going to affect them when it comes to future playoff picks, which is probably why you hear a lot of coaches saying, yeah, let's go to 24. And it's certainly why people in the SEC wanted to go to 16. A lot of ADs probably want to go to 24. But ultimately, this is going to come down to whether the presidents and chancellors agree with that sentiment, or whether Greg Sankey chooses to sway them to staying at 16 or staying at 16. I say that like we're at 16 now. We're not.
Yeah.
We're still at
Yeah.
12. But it's I don't know whether it's going to get settled in Destin. I tend to think no. Greg Sankey said last week, no, it won't be settled in Destin. But who knows? Like last year, it kind of was the SEC's position. So maybe they'll come to a consensus this time.
Does anything get settled in Destin? I don't know. I just don't feel like anything ever gets settled in that meeting.
Last year, it was like that the SEC wanted to do the 5+11.
Yeah.
But I mean, sometimes things get settled there. Sometimes it's, I mean,
I don't feel like Destin was the meeting. I think that was sort of like the foregone conclusion going in, right? So like in the sense, like I just feel like there's always conversations behind that these not like insider trading, right? But just like the coaches talk, right? And just like everyone else does.
Depends on the subject. Last year on whether to do the 5+11 or the guaranteed bids, it was when coaches came out of their meetings saying they wanted to do the 5+11, that like I think that was kind of an excuse for Sankey to embrace that because that's what he wanted. And it's like, all right, that's what our coaches want, and presidents are like, okay, yeah, and the ADs were like, okay, yeah, sure. There's been other things like where we expected them to decide on 9 games a couple years and they didn't. But it depends on the subject, like whether I think there's going to be a lot discussed next week, and it's not just going to be the CFP. The CFP might be like 10% of what they talk about, but it'll get like 90% of the interest.
Well, yeah, Seth, were you surprised? And I am, that Kirby Smart is for 24 and Josh Heupel, especially Kirby, because just getting to the playoffs, that's not enough at Georgia, not with what he's done, 117 wins his first 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, I saw his comments. I haven't talked to him. I haven't about that to get it myself. But it is that he's kind of like whatever, and maybe he saw that it was going towards the momentum was going towards 24, so he said, yeah, sure, I'd be fine with that. But I think if it was just 16, he would be fine with that too. It's the Josh Heupels, some other like places like maybe Auburn and Florida right now. I mean, weirdly, they should be in Georgia's bucket where 16 is fine. But those are the ones that are like, 24 with the current setup works for us. But you mentioned in the intro the money part of this. The interesting thing I want to hear next week, and I've tried to take the pulse a little bit, but you'll be able to better in Destin when everyone's there. What do the Mississippi States and Arkansas's, Kentucky's, what do they think? Because yes, 24 means a better chance of making the playoff every year, but the money's got to work. Like Arkansas they reversed the decision, but they just cut 10 programs because of revenue and then reversed it. Well, if you're getting a conference championship game, which of late value for that apparently the SEC has been telling people is close to 100 million, you're not going to easily make that up via just adding playoff games, because as I explained in that and explained to people since, and I think other people understand it too, like the SEC championship, and this goes for the Big Ten, which also makes a lot of money, but is not as storied, but that money stays with the conference. Like you put up it's your own championship game. Like the TV ratings are good and they are built into the ESPN contract. You also sell stuff associated with that game, like sponsorships, advertising in the stadium, like stuff you don't think about, but that makes a lot of money. You get rid of it, you add playoff games, that the money is pooled together and goes to the CFP and then goes back to the schools, but you don't. So it's if you're gonna get to 24, and you may say, oh, playoff games. Like, well, if you look at the ratings for the first round playoff games, the first 2 years of this system, they don't approach what the SEC championship was. So are you going to get a lot in a new TV deal for going to the playoff? Like ESPN basically says no. So I'm not saying it won't work and they won't do it. I'm saying that where they are is the SEC needs to be shown the math that it does work.
Well, you pointed out so well in your column. And what is the proper? I mean, I'm old school. I love reading the newspaper. It's like lifting weights with your brain. But you pointed out the first round CFP games aren't exceeding what the SEC championship game draws.
Right. I mean, and so much of it is kind of because of matchups. And I mean, last year you had, God bless James Madison and Tulane, but you had them in there. You had blowouts the first year of it. Tennessee, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Indiana. You have bigger brand names. This is the argument that the Big Ten's putting out there and other people that are putting out there that the math will work, is that once you you'll have more brand names in there. Now, you could say if they were 16, which is what the SEC wants, past year, Vanderbilt, which isn't normally a brand name, but they had Diego Pavia, they would have been in there. Notre Dame would have been in there. Texas would have been in there. So, if you're going all the way to 24, you're getting, the Virginias, just on down the list, that aren't brands. Are these first round games still going to do well? Or I think a lot of people in the SEC side of it and the ESPN side of it would say, if you just go to 16, that's good enough. That's what, to use last year's example, you get the Tulane, the Notre Dames and the Texases in there, and you don't dilute it by going all the way to 24.
Yeah, Texas is so big. My friend Barnwood Brenda made this map for me over my shoulder out of cedar. She hand carved it, and Texas is the newest member of the conference, and it's the biggest thing on the map. They are huge, and I got a lot of Texas friends. They think that they had the Longhorn Network, which I think blew up the Big 12. So interesting. All right, quick question, and Brendan gave me this one: is the SEC right to resist playoff expansion in order to protect the regular season? Because the regular season, every weekend matters.
Yeah, and I was always one of those people, and Greg Sankey came, and people in the SEC came to this view too, and college leaders did too, that you weren't lessening the regular season by expanding the playoff first, from the BS to games to 14 play, increasing the interest in the regular season because interested anymore, engaged as the season went on, and by having more teams involved, you had more fan bases engaged around the country, and so 12 was good. And they think that 16 doesn't affect that either. The concern, and State called it an unknown last week, and he's just saying
Yeah, Seth, you're breaking up. You might want to reboot, come back. We lost you there for a second. But and just if you can come back in, I want to get into that because, Greg Sankey doesn't want automatic qualifiers in the league. And I think it's a good point. I mean, the SEC had 5 last year out of the 12. And when Seth comes back, I'd like to get his thoughts on that because it's a masterful piece that he wrote in The Athletic. And The Athletic is really almost daily show prep for people around the country, like GatorbaitMedia.com. Read some of Fran's and Buddy's stuff and Lauren's and Brendan. It's when you are reading, you're catching up. You're getting so much more. And Seth, you're back with us.
Okay.
We lost you there for a second. The one thing about it is the SEC, Greg Sankey doesn't want the auto qualifiers into the league. He doesn't like that at all. And you just mentioned some of the teams. I mean, James Madison, they've been producing some coaches. Chesney's now at UCLA, Signetti's at Indiana. But talk about that and just, again, the regular season, because this debate's been going on a long time, and I don't know where you stand on it, but I'd like to hear.
Yeah, I mean, Sankey doesn't want auto qualifiers. He said that, but he's also said that he understood that, he's lost that argument, and that also it has increased interest. And especially the larger the playoff gets, the more it doesn't matter that a James Madison gets in. The problem last year was that you had kind of a perfect storm where both of them did, and it just was not They don't think that'll happen again. But auto qualifiers means that everybody's interested. It means that like you're not arguing whether the ninth SEC team gets in over the first Big 12 team. It's better for the sport. But the whole like automatic bids, like 4 for the Big 10 and the SEC, 2 for the ACC and the Big 12, that was thrown around last year, and the SEC ultimately didn't want to do that. Then the Big 10 has tried to go to like 4 for everybody, and then maybe increase, fiddle around with it. Now they're just at basically 24 with 5 automatic conference champions and 19 at-larges, and I think that's what's bringing a lot of that SEC like it.
Yeah, and Seth, I don't know why we're breaking up a little bit, but you're making sense. And I want to ask you about college football nationally, and you've got such a good grasp of it, writing for The Athletic. I mean, you've covered schools in the South and all, but you get the big picture. It's what I call it, the tectonic plate theory. If there's movement underground, that's what earthquakes happen. That's how they happen. So what we do in the SEC, there's reverberations. The Big 12 and the ACC, as Chuck Oliver says, all right, y'all stay out in the car. We'll come get you when we're done. The Big 10 and the SEC control everything, but it's 50-50. You're never going to get anywhere. Who's the one vote, that can come in there and move this if is necessary?
Yeah, I mean, the Big 10 is unified. That's what they said last night. And whether they are truly unified, I don't know, but they definitely wanted to put up a unified front to kind of pressure people in the SEC, the ones that are wavering on whether to go to 24, to say, hey, everybody wants this. Why don't you? But if ultimately the SEC doesn't want this, even if it's a minority within the conference, but a minority that is powerful enough, then it stays in the current format on the 2031 season and the 2032 playoff. That's why we're at 12 this year rather than 16, which everybody wanted. By everybody, I mean the stakeholders, not necessarily fans. Everyone wanted to go to 16. They couldn't agree on the format for 16, so we're at 12. Could happen again this year. ESPN could really put their finger on the scale and say, but the SEC may go along. I mean, they're not going to do exactly what ESPN wants, but I do also think that ESPN and the SEC kind of want to do right by each other because it works in their interest. So, ESPN is always there and destined, and we'll see, like, if they come together on it. Everyone's got their own options, and ESPN's receiving a lot of it because they want to protect the rating, which they carry more than anybody else. ESPN has more college football games than any other network, and they want to protect that. But also because in the contract, anything beyond 14 game playoff format gets bid out. ESPN has everything up to 14. So that's another reason that everyone thinks that Big 10 wants to expand, that Fox can get involved.
Yeah, and I read that in your story. I believe you pointed it out. Past 14, it's all up for negotiation. And so you've got the Big 10 on a Saturday. You've got NBC, you've got CBS, you've got Fox, and you got the Big 10 network. I think the Big 10 network, Fox owns 61% of the Big 10. I don't know how it works, but they're not really, NBC, CBS, they're not exactly, buddies. I mean, they're competitors. Whereas in the SEC, you've got the Disney family of ABC, ESPN, SEC network. So, in a contiguous footprint, as we can see on the map over here. All right. So when you think about inventory, the value of games, like, I'm an Auburn grad. Brendan, they do GatorBaitMedia.com. I'll be in Atlanta for that Baylor game. A lot of people mad, sold that game, but you're getting $5 million for NIL. That could buy you a quarterback, which could lead to winning and getting in the playoff and lead to it's basically a cost of doing business today, isn't it?
Yeah. I did a story on that last fall. I sat down with John Cohen about it.
Seth, can you try more of that? Can you try one more time to come back in? Okay, yeah, we lost you. Boy, this is one of the better guests we've had in a long time. And the knowledge Seth has, I know we're having a few difficulties with the connection, but Man, he's making so much sense, so many salient points on here. And the money, $100 million is the value now for the SEC championship game. So, folks, if you're thinking about, hey, let's just get rid of that conference championship game, we don't need it. There's how are you going to do it? The TV people are going to demand you replace it. And the first rounds of the CFP aren't even coming close to what the SEC championship game produces in terms of revenue. So, I mean, it's a financial impasse. And I think we all know that money drives everything in this world. $100 million. The value, Pete Cordelli called me right before the show and said, look, remember, the value of the big championship games in the conference is like $250 million. The SEC is bringing in $100 million of that. And as big as the footprint of the Big Ten is, they're not bringing in that kind of money. And Seth, go do yourself a favor. Go back on The Athletic Monday and read his column about playoff expansion, pushback from the SEC. And it's frankly, it's the cost of doing business. And either you do it or you're going to fall behind. And what did Tony Barnhart likes to say all the time? What Bobby Bowden said, the train has left the station and you better be on it, because things constantly change. And I think that we become myopically focused on what's happening at the moment, and we forget there have been pivotal moments throughout the history of college football. And I hope we can get Seth back on, because he's making so many great points. And you know, Brendan, you see it
just at an inflection point and something that's been around for a long time. So we're seeing the crumbling of tradition and change is hard. And what do they say? Turning a ship is hard, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, I think turning a cruise ship around is really difficult. A little small Zodiac boat that Rangers and SEALs use for, you know, launching attacks is a lot easier. But the SEC,
those are boats, right? Those are boats.
But ships, right? You know, the bottom line is that the SEC is that 10-story Disney cruise ship that's out there in the Caribbean, right. and if it gets in the harbor, it's hard to turn it around.
It might have hantavirus, it might not. We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. And so we're at a point, people. I love that SEC championship game in Atlanta. If you haven't been, you got to go. It is a big deal. I mean, I was saying, hey, let's get rid of it just to start the playoffs earlier. But how are you going to make up the $100 million?
Well, you start messing. Yeah.
How are you going to do that? You can't do it.
Yeah, it's a fun event. I've been many times, and you know, I don't know if you're an SEC fan or if your team is in the SEC. You know, that's always locker room fodder, right? That's like, you know, Steve Spurrier used to, you know, always said, "Go win the SEC first."
Yeah, remember when Nick Saban got to LSU?
He started, yes, but those are the guys that placed value on winning that game, and winning the SEC meant something.
That's what Nick Saban said. His first meeting at LSU in 2000 when he came from Michigan State was get to the SEC championship game, win the SEC. Because if you do that, you're by default, you're going to be in the running for the national championship. And that 2001, when the throw-in Rastafarian Rohan Davey from Hialeah, Florida, was injured, and Matt Mark, a pre-dentistry student, was put into the game, and they beat Tennessee. The Tennessee fans were throwing rose petals at the feet of the Tennessee players as they walked into then the Georgia Dome, and they got beat. I remember I was at a Christmas party with a bunch of people watching that game, and it just sucked the life out of the room being in, you know, around a lot of Tennessee fans. Of course, the LSU fans were having a blast, but
well, I when you talk about it, you say your stories, Rob, and I love it. But the thing is, it's like it saddens me because, you know, I you know, I'm not a purist by any means. You know, I like change. I mean, change is inevitable. It's going to happen. We don't have there's not much choice in it. We know something was going to change, right? We've been, you know, sticking our fingers, you know, in the dam there for a long time. And, you know, NIL, you know, and that's why we talk about that, folks, so much, is that NIL is just literally just on the headlines every day, because you can't get away from it. And you know, covering college football is year round now because of it. transfer portal, all these things, because now we have to pay attention to the money and who's got the money and who doesn't have the money, and how that money is going to be divvied out. And I think, like you just said, and when you're talking to Seth, it's like, who does, and I've asked this question, who really does have control? And it really does just comes down to conference. And are we going to see, the rumor rolling around again in March? Are we going to see these super conferences? Buddy Martin's been telling me my whole life. Is this that kind of inflection point?
Well, so says the guy who started streaming back in 2008, Brendan. I mean, you are way ahead of look. Wayne Gretzky. Why are you the greatest hockey player of all time? Did you play hockey, Brendan? You probably did. You probably
no.
Pretty good at it. Well, Wayne Gretzky. Roy Firestone, don't you miss those great Roy Firestone interviews? Kind of like Tom Schneider at night.
I do love Roy.
And Roy Firestone was awesome. He said, Wayne, people regard you. They say you're the greatest hockey player of all time. You're not the biggest. Certainly, I'm looking at you. You're not that big. You're not the fastest. You're not the strongest. You're not the number one in anything. But you're the greatest of all time. Why is that? Wayne Gretzky kind of pulled back, said, hey, well, I don't go where the puck is. I go where I think the puck is going. And that was a pivotal moment in interviews. Seth Emerson, well, we'll get him back on. I said, let's try it again. After the Destin meetings, he had a bad connection. Aliens got him, but
got him. Well, disclosure. I would say he would also say Marty McSorley and what Dave something. I forget. I was reading his book for a while. Gretzky, back in the day when you had enforcers. Listen, and I'm not just pulling that out of my
Gordie Howe.
I actually did work in the NHL.
You did.
You did. Yeah, I did
with Colorado Avalanche.
Yeah. I was on the ice. I drank out of the cup.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, man. I've seen the Stanley Cup twice.
You drank out of the Stanley Cup. Was it Ham's beer?
I don't know what it was. It was not.
Should have been.
It was probably Molson Golden.
Okay.
But
it's the number one beer in Colorado,
You remember when they were the first year of the Avalanche, right? The Colorado Avalanche, they won
the Stanley
Cup. Yes.
A lot of my son's friends from Memphis live in Denver. That is a hot city. And when Wilson flies into Denver, I've always suggested he take the Greyhound, but he likes to fly there or drive. But then you take that ride from Denver to Jackson, Wyoming. It's a little 7.5, 8 hours.
Long way.
There's an area when he drives in Wyoming, it's called the high desert or something like that. The wind is so strong. He said, you will see 18 wheelers thrown across the highway. He goes, you are literally driving with your hands. You can see your knuckles.
Wind gusts over 100 miles an hour, sir.
Yeah. And then you got,
there's a reason there's the tumbleweed is alive and well in that part of the world.
Yeah.
And it is, and there's documentaries about tumbleweeds and the life of a tumbleweed from that area. Wyoming is beautiful and windy. That's the one thing about Wyoming is that the wind will make you crazy. But I lived up in Steamboat, went to college up there my first year, which is right next to the Wyoming border, it's just beautiful. It's a beautiful place to be. It's like, but it is windy and cold. But
I want to go. I want to go to Frisco.
I was just saying for the years that I worked in TV, when I worked in broadcasting, I did Denver Nuggets and Colorado Avalanche. And I did 80, well, not 88 games. Eventually I did because we did away games. But, as the home show guy, rolling cables and getting behind the camera guys that were running on the ice and all that stuff, that was our job. So I did every game. We did every game for years.
Well, you learn so much about
And then
television.
I caddied for Joe Sakic.
Well,
and
but
his
when
brother,
you work, but
one of the greatest stories ever.
You learn about golf as a caddy. You learn about surgery when you do, you work on your cadaver in medical school and you give it a name. But I'll tell you something else. The experience that I had working for, whether it was CBS, Turner Broadcasting, ESPN, got to work for them in college, on the weekends, and they pay you for the day. And you'd work about 18, 19, you would work 18 hours. And I remember carrying cable on my back from the ESPN truck outside of the stadium, running down on the field. Yeah.
I'm sorry, but that's
an appreciation is what I'm saying for what they do.
Well, I put that on your back in 2 skis and I did the first X Games. So yeah, the first very first Winter X, I did that on the back of a snowcat, 3 o'clock in the morning, charging up the hill, snow hitting you in the face. This is great, isn't it? I'm like, no, this sucks.
You got to meet
there was no fiber back then, so everything had to go from truck all the way up the mountain.
Wow. Well, you need to meet my youngest son, Maxwell Polk Brown, Peanut, we call him. He's allergic to peanuts, oddly enough. But he's been out in Sequoia National Park and now in Moab, Utah for the last year. And he is an X Games guy. He's going to run the Moab 240. And it's a 5-day race, 240 miles.
Summer X is a different deal. Yeah.
But he loves all that skateboarding and all that stuff, and it's incredible.
I also covered the Race Across America one time, which is the United States version of the Tour de France, I guess, but it is the Race Across America on a bike.
Well, that's a long one. That is
I covered in the back of a van. We covered it from California to Maryland.
Well, in Huntsville, Alabama, the Rocket City, the smartest city in Alabama.
Going, tell me about why you're freaking out. And he's like, I'm seeing little midgets out in the desert.
I'm seeing things.
Hallucinating. Yeah, they have their saddlebags or burns on the side of their legs. People collapse, and you have to run up to a camera in your face and be like, why did you suck? Why did you quit after 4 days of riding your bike?
Well, you start seeing things, and there's a double Ironman in Huntsville, Alabama. Double Ironman, which is 2.4 mile swim. That's a 4.8 mile, almost a 5 mile swim, a 224 mile bike, and a 52.4 mile run. And Montesano in Huntsville, if you've ever been to Huntsville, Alabama,
I have.
It's mountainous. I did.
That's where all the aliens are, and Dudley Dawson knows all about that.
Well,
all the aliens are in Huntsville, Alabama.
Wait a minute. The aliens are at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio. But
Huntsville, you do your research on disclosure. Well, we've got the guy.
We got Dudley Dawson.
Dudley knows everything about that.
Yeah, at Busch Stadium. Hold on. Mike Shannon, Jack Buck, 7th inning stretch here. All of you Cardinals fans. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. Dudley, if you could go back in time, Back to the Future, would you want to have been the chief organist at the Cardinals games back when Harry Carey was calling the games? Or would you want to be the person bringing him cold drinks during the game, or both?
I would be the person drinking them with him. I guess so. I'd bring him to him and drink them with him. So
I love it, Dudley.
And they were too. The stats guys, the guys in the truck back in the day smoking cigarettes in the truck.
Very entertaining. Very entertaining. They often talk. They sometimes talk about baseball.
Hey, I love it. Your background is gorgeous. The arch. That's when you get up there in the very center of it. I was a little 8, 9. I was 9 first time I went in the arch, and the wind was blowing. Of course, Dad, an architect, goes, "Boy, it ain't going down." I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Rebar." He goes, "There's no natural tensile strength in concrete, so it sways, and you're looking and it's moving, and you're looking 750 feet down below, and people look like ants." Dudley, first off, good morning. Thank you for joining us. You do great work at hogville.net. We had a conversation until we didn't with Seth Emerson of The Athletic, talking about the 2014 playoff expansion, the cost of getting rid of conference championship games. Forget about it. As I say, forget about it. $100 million is the value Seth talked about of the SEC championship game. And then he said, you've got schools like Arkansas, took away tennis, but they brought it back. And I don't know, but that's a good thing. I love tennis. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, Chrissy Everett, Jimmy Connors,
the last time we had an American.
All those guys back in the day. The wife played tennis in college. And, I'm glad that tennis is coming back. We'll see if it's a sustainable model. There's been some weird decisions around here. You just wake up one morning and decide you're done with tennis. And then here comes tennis loyalists rushing in.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it works out. I hope for the best. If they have to open the doors up, like I understand they do at the University of Memphis, Memphis State still to me, I guess. Then and to raise some money too, that'll be fine. But you hate to see cutting sports, and you were going to get in. It sounded like that if they didn't bring tennis back, they were going to bring girls flag football here.
There you go.
Emerging sport, sir. It's like the new soccer.
Yeah. Dudley, interestingly, I met a guy at the
Big
Arkansas Waterfowl Hall of Fame dinner 3 years ago in Jonesboro. George Dunklin from Arkansas, Pine Bluff, Arkansas man. Great. What a great outdoorsman. Awesome guy. His wife played tennis at Memphis State University. That's what they called it back then. Sonny, who long time worked at Alex's Tavern, my favorite tavern in the world in Memphis since 1953. Sonny used to say when Memphis State, Memphis Steak done beat up on a cripple team, called a Memphis Steak. It was the funny. If Sonny was, if whatever bet Sonny gave you, take the opposite. But we loved Sonny. He was a great man. But I got to ask you, the last time an American, by the way, won Wimbledon was 1999, Pete Sampras. And he was so boring, as my dad said. He goes, give me McEnroe screaming and having a hissy fit any day. Pete Sampras was a robot. And then the last time an American won the U.S. Open was Andy Roddick in 2002.
Yeah,
so
I think that was more like McEnroe growing up. Now I'm more like Sampras.
No, you're not. Well, if anything, you're passionate.
Calm down. I mean,
yeah, oh yeah. But
tennis
you're passionate.
is one of those sports that I prefer the female version of it. So I like to watch. I watch. I mean, they're amazing.
Well, it is, and tennis is an awesome game to play. I don't know if pickleball is people are just too lazy to play a full court of tennis. I don't know what to think of it.
Pickleball. I'm going to take on pickleball, and I'm going to get a team for Sidelines, and I'm going to go take on everyone else.
I'm getting Dudley. Dudley is a badass athlete.
He's got a drop shot that'll kill you. Right on.
Dudley's
my
Swiss
problem
Army
is
knife.
I can't stay out of the kitchen, and apparently you're not supposed to be in the kitchen in that sport. And also, I would hit too hard in there.
Well,
we're doing a pickleball show because I got to understand I got to understand the rules of how this works. I don't know what the kitchen is. Is that like being in the lane in the box?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, that's okay. Well, that's what because I mean tennis is I love singles. I mean, and it's all about foot position. And 100 times I had to hit from the back right corner to the opposite end across the court and hit this white towel 100 times. One time, my coach told me before I could leave. My mother goes, I sat in that car for over 2 hours. She goes, I don't want to hear another word out of you until I hit it 100. But I hit it 101. It's not enough don't run to the finish line, run through it. That's what I believe. Let's talk Razorbacks, man. All right, football. Have you had a chance to sit down and talk to Ryan Silverfield? There's two things he's big on. I think he's going to do some great things with Children's Hospital, and he loves animal rescue. But that guy gets his players involved in the community, the Northwest.
Yeah, that's
corner.
definitely been a thing here as
him.
well. Definitely been a thing here as well. And they took their road show last week they did one in Fayetteville, Little Rock, Jonesboro, Frisco, Texas, because of the big, huge, Razorback club there is down there in the Dallas area. So he got out and met a lot of the fans this week at staged events after doing a lot of just going around and meeting them on his own. So, again, he has won the press conference. He's won spring football. We'll see about those first 3 games, 2 of them very tough. But as I've said all along since he got here, loving the accountability things that he's doing here. That's where it has to start.
All right, let's get into some SEC baseball right now. Tournaments going on down in Hoover. Now today's redneck word of the day is mayonnaise. Mayonnaise. A lot of folks down there drinking cold beer and cooking out and having a good time at the SEC tournament in Hoover, Dudley. Teams like Arkansas, teams like LSU keep you up at night because when they get into a tournament, there's so much of it. Here's where culture matters. Those guys will never lay down, regardless of whether they won the league or not. When they get into a tournament, it's a fresh start. It's like they've been paroled, isn't it, Dud?
Yeah, and it's one of these things. It sure looks like they're going to be a number 2 seed. I think Tennessee probably is too. So a matchup of two programs wanting to get a little bit higher before the end of the weekend. Both of them, I think, would probably have to run to the championship to be able to do that. Arkansas is not starting its ace today because of the amount of rest. I guess he'll go tomorrow, starting Tate McGuire today. But you can't win the second one unless you win the first one. So I'm sure there'll be a variety of people going to the mound, and they won't save anybody in this game besides Hunter Dietz.
Yeah. Carl Childers has a question for Vince Ferrara. Reckon what you got good to eat in there. From Sling Blade, 1996, filmed in Benton, Arkansas, by the way, a real town near Hot Springs. Vince, absolutely loved your appearance on Our Lads podcast. I got to be on Touchdown UK with George Somerville and Ollie last Thursday over in the British Isles. That's my first global appearance. Man, I love George Somerville asking, Rob, could you talk about the Auburn Tigers? And I'm looking on the last few years here and what's going on. And I said, well, the defeated man is gone. But anyway, great stuff. Vince, I'm going to say this for the record, everybody watching. Not since John Ward. What did he do? Scored. Touchdown, Tennessee. Give him 6. There's not a better talent on the Vol Network than Vince Ferrara. I heard, Dudley, you got to go watch him. I never seen anybody that did a forensic audit of UT football on the depth chart. He had blood types. Vince, you were to be commended. You do a great show every week, Monday through Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. Eastern on the Sports Animal 99.1 in Knoxville. How you doing, Mama Ferrara? Oh, we can't hear you.
I'm sure he got likes, dislikes, hobbies, all that.
There we go.
I temporarily put it on mute. I'll be take you behind the curtain a little bit. I got an espresso maker right next to me. So I was firing up the froth after I made the espresso. Yes. I didn't want to bother you guys while Dudley was breaking things down. I just forgot to take it off mute. So that's why I'm locked and loaded with you guys with some espresso while I have my favorite 20, 30 minutes of the week here with you guys. But thank you, Rob. Appreciate it. You've accomplished a lot, and Dudley's unbelievable. Dudley could break down the Arkansas roster. It's just hard work. It's time on task. It's having some common sense. It's not being biased to all those kind of things. So just cool opportunity, because I use Our Lads for their depth charts, especially drive coverage. For years, I think they've done an awesome job, and they're trying to get the college depth charts up to the level of accuracy that they've always had the NFL depth charts. And when I try to follow, and there's a blog up there if anyone wants to check it out on our website, 991thesportsanimal.com. I keep track of all the former Tennessee players that are in the league, even the ones that transferred and went elsewhere that fans don't call VFLs anymore. Those are just ex-Vols. But then there's no local players as well that didn't go to UT. But I track all that. So depth charts are really interesting because the NFL, as you guys know, they don't put that stuff out right away. So I've always used Our Lads for that. And they do an awesome job. So for them to now want to talk to people locally on the scene to where they can make adjustments to the depth chart, and that's really what they were doing is, all right, so this guy should be second team instead of third team. What do you think about this guy starting, and what's the competition there? So it was just cool to kind of, organically break it all down. It was fun. And if you just search for Our Lads on YouTube, you can find that conversation. So thank you for saying that. And I'm excited to talk this baseball matchup this afternoon in Hoover with Dudley today, a little Tennessee v. Arkansas.
Yeah, I mean, let's do it.
I miss Tony, and I watch a lot of the San Francisco games just to see him. I know it's not going as well as he hoped it would, but was very excited for Josh Elander and him getting a chance. And I realized it probably hadn't been the season that either one of these two teams necessarily wanted, but they're still very competitive teams in a very competitive league. And there's nobody who wants to see SEC teams come into their place as number 2 seeds. Which, as I said, I think is going to happen. It's going to be different that if they don't host here, because that's just been a thing. It's just sometimes it hadn't been good for them. Last time they did go. I mean, last time they did go on the road, they went on the road to Oklahoma State and North Carolina and went to College World Series. So it can be done, but we'll see.
Yeah, and both of y'all, this is a question. Would SEC coaches secretly, answer it in 30 seconds or less, secretly rather leave Hoover healthy than win the whole thing? I'll start with you, Vince from Tampa. Go ahead, Vince. Yes, sir, coach.
I would say healthy and having their pitching aligned. I think you can combine that, because that's a big deal. That's why, what Dudley was referencing earlier in them going with Tate McGuire as opposed to, Dietz or anyone else from the weekend, because you want to line those things up. You want the right rest in pitching them, but then you want to set it up for the NCAA tournament. And Tennessee's trying to do that as well. That's why Blanco's going ahead of Teague and Coons, and it'll set both of them up. If Tennessee beats Arkansas, it sets him up for a meeting versus Texas, who he had his amazing 15 strikeout performance with or in the regular season. So, yeah, just lining things up for how it might go in the NCAA tournament. So I'd say health and pitching staff over winning the whole thing.
Dudley?
Winning would be nice, certainly, and every time you step between the lines, no matter which sport you go out to win the game. I think all coaches do that. But the smart ones do it the right way, and I think that's what they're doing. People may not want to hear that. They think maybe Hunter Dietz should go on 2 days less rest than he went last time. You just can't do that. And especially when Hunter Dietz is going to be a top 25, top 30 pick, you've got to think of your future. There are pitchers in high school looking very closely at what you're doing with, the usage and all that. Tate McGuire hasn't had a great year, but he can give you 3 solid innings, and that's where you're going to go. And again, as Vince said, you're setting yourself up to beat Texas. Give yourself the best shot to beat Texas. A win today is not going to move you off that 2 seed. It would take a run all the way through, and a lot of other teams losing. Arkansas is not last team out, or of the 16 seeds and all that. So they're playing it smart, as Dave Van Horn usually does.
Yeah. Well, look at the top 6 rankings. Number 1, UCLA, and I mean they're really good. Big Ten, but yeah, right. Big Ten. They're still California kids. Then you've got North Carolina, Georgia Tech, Georgia, Texas, Auburn. SEC versus ACC, Vince. Which league you think stronger? Which one has more depth? And doesn't it all get down to pitching?
Yeah, pitching is a big factor for sure. And, I think in a lot of the projections for the tournament, the SEC, can probably get like 11 or 12. And then the ACC, you're looking at, I guess worst case scenario, like 7, best case scenario around 9. The thing is that the ACC has 2 national championship contenders in Georgia Tech and North Carolina. I would slightly favor Georgia Tech, but I think both of those are title contending teams. You'd have to include Georgia in that for the SEC. Then is it Texas? Is it Florida? Maybe this year the SEC has more national championship contenders as opposed to one way out in front going into the tournament and then a whole bunch else. And we saw what they did with their top seed last year, where they didn't get to the regional final. So, and then other times like Tennessee a couple of years ago, they had all the expectations and they were a rare team that actually the number 1 national seed, and they played up to it. And they even backed it up with regular season, tournament title. They ran the gamut. So it can be done a lot of different ways. I would give the SEC the advantage over the ACC, but it could end up that both conferences have 2 in Omaha, and or maybe more than that when we get to that point, because some of the bottom portion of the SEC probably won't get out of the first weekend.
Dudley, what do you got? I
think UCLA has the best player and is the best team. I've had a chance to watch them on TV several times, but that doesn't always in baseball get you to the finish line. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't make it, but I do think that's the beauty about baseball. You're only as good as the next day's pitcher, as they say. And there are a lot of teams out there that are middling because they don't have enough pitching. Arkansas is one of those. Arkansas sends Hunter Dietz out. They win that game easily. I think only one game here this year that he hadn't given them a great effort. But the day 2 with Gabe Gackle, day 3, it has not been consistent, and you've had to outscore teams. And they certainly did that in the last game, kicking a late field goal getting 2 late field goals to win 16-12 at Kentucky. So,
yeah, I think both of y'all. One thing I've learned about the great sports writers, great sports media people, they're all baseball junkies, purists, whatever. We got Rays Nation on the deep south flank, Braves country to the east, Cardinal Nation to the west, and for our people in the northern part, I'd say Cincinnati Reds. I grew up AM 700, WLW 700 with Marty Brenneman, Big Red Machine, Pete Rose, Joe Morgan. Damn, you know what? If you haven't heard Vince on radio with John Wilkerson, the voice of the Tennessee Vols, if you hadn't, then you're doing yourself a disservice. Vince talking about baseball, the future of this sport in this league. It's so big. You watch Hoover, every game, it's exciting.
It is. And, LSU, look at the season they've had and how many fans they had there and how loud they were. They were there watching everybody else play.
Yes.
And of course, pounding a few drinks along the way and then getting ready for theirs. And it doesn't matter how late they're playing or what their record during the regular season is. So the tournament is always healthy. Tennessee had their fair share of fans there also. And just this matchup between Tennessee and Arkansas is the kind of marquee matchup that the SEC tournament loves, and it's healthy for the sport because of all the success they've had, their connections, their rivalry. And Dudley, I want you to speak to this. The parallels between the seasons that these two teams have had, it's very interesting. And they kind of took the same path where you had the disappointments, and when one would dip, the other would dip, and when they'd spike up, the other would spike up. It's only one game difference in SEC record. I was even looking at their stats. The team ERA of Arkansas staff is 4.64. The team ERA of Tennessee right now is 4.64. The home runs allowed by the pitching staff for Arkansas is 80. The home runs allowed by Tennessee's pitching staff right now is 80. And you can go on and on. Statistically, eye test, the record, the way the season has gone. I mean, these two teams with their fans voicing their displeasure for how things have gone at times, very, very similar in getting to this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest things is both have had adequate pitching, but not the kind of pitching you need to have a championship team. Arkansas and Tennessee as well has found ways to score enough runs and be good offensively to overcome that down the stretch here. They'll go back and look at losses to Missouri on Sunday game, to Kentucky, one of those losses. They'll go back and look at the bottom of the league and letting some possible sweeps get away that's keeping them from hosting next week and keeping them from being more in the conversation. Again, they're playing maybe their best baseball of the year, but they just don't have enough pitching. And I know nobody wants me to say that, but as you said, I'm a truth teller. So
yeah, you're a truth broker. Well, for both of y'all, let me look at these games today: Mississippi State and Missouri, Florida and Vanderbilt, Arkansas and Tennessee, and Auburn and LSU. Auburn is 6th seed. I think they got the strongest schedule in the country. Strength of schedule in football, I think it's overrated. In baseball, in basketball, it matters more, doesn't it, Vince, because you play so many games?
Yes, and when you play them, those kind of things, you can really change. Tennessee and Arkansas are different now than they were in pre-conference. Sometimes you can play a really good mid-major that is throwing out, one of their better pitchers are really trying to win, whereas some of those favorites maybe aren't doing that and running a Johnny Allstaff and trying to get through those games. So you take an L. So yeah, I do think it can be just deceiving. And then look at the RPI discrepancy. I mean, the RPI is so different. Vanderbilt is 73 in the RPI. The KPI and the DSR that they're using more as metrics in baseball this year, they don't have the game-to-game ride effect where you can play a team and then lose. They're 55 and 40 in the other metrics. I mean, that's a drastic difference. And with Vanderbilt, having a better SEC record than Kentucky, and their RPI is, many times worse. So, it's flawed for sure, but just really interesting what some of the opportunities are for these teams like a Vanderbilt, trying to keep their season alive, and LSU as well.
Yeah,
and Arkansas did everything it could to let Kahua Aloy play right field, and he just couldn't get it done. And dropped fly balls, catches he should have made. They took that to the plate. once they said, okay, you're the DH, dude's been on a tear and has made their offense a lot better. There are decisions that you have to make as you go throughout the season like that. And they were trying to do it for his future. They were trying to get as many good bats as they could, but the kid, just wasn't up to the task of playing. And that happens. And that's why the DH came into effect in Major League Baseball back in the day. But now he's hitting the cover off it. That gives them a chance because that lengthens the lineup. When he was a preseason All-American and, obviously the brother of last year's Player of the Year.
Yeah. Well, I need to get I've had this guy on the show a couple of times from 680 The Fan in Atlanta, Chris Domino. Man, I mean, baseball it's the three of I'll just direct traffic, as Buddy says. I'm a point guard a lot, but y'all's appreciation of baseball, it takes so much brain power. It's such a cerebral sport. Vince, quickly, we're about out of time. You go to a nice restaurant. Hey, you go to Folks Folly Steakhouse in Memphis. You want to order a steak that's not on the menu, order the Schwarzkopf filet. The general was our speaker at a conference one time in 1992, and he ordered a big giant
filet, I guess.
Yeah, it's a giant filet from Folks Folly, stuffed with blue cheese and crab meat in it. But what's off the menu at Tennessee quickly, and then same thing for you, Dudley, people need to be paying attention to?
Well, Alex Golish had really interesting comments kind of behind the scenes. I don't know if you saw it on the Cube show with Cole Kubelik, where he basically behind the curtain said, hey, Josh Heupel every year was like, we got to change, we got to evolve. When they went to Tennessee, hey, we can't do what we've done. We have to evolve and get better. Look at the cornerbacks, look at the defensive linemen. And I think that's against the narrative that Josh Heupel hasn't been willing to change, and he did with his DC and his strength and conditioning hires. So I think very complimentary with Alex Golish, talking about Heupel, how he shaped him as a coach, and he'll be coming to Knoxville this year, just like Lane Kiffin and Jerry Mack and a whole bunch of other former coaches take on Tennessee here at home.
Well, I'll be there, and Audrey's going to sit on one side of the stadium, and I'm sitting on the other. We ain't speaking. She's a Vol for life, Dudley.
Nice.
Vince, that.
And as far as Arkansas, baseball is playing in the SEC tournament. That will not have my attention the most. The thing that will have my attention most this weekend is the Arkansas softball team, which is 2 wins away from its first ever College World Series berth. They won all 3 games in the tournament last weekend by the run rule. They're a machine. They're led by one of the best coaches on the campus in Courtney Deifel, and now they're playing Duke, and people are fired up about it here because they love their softball, they love the Razorbacks, and unless you're a Duke fan, everybody hates Duke. So you got a villain here this weekend.
They are the villain. Them and LSU ought to play one another. God, that'd be fun. Hey, look, great stuff, guys. Thank you more than you know for sharing your time with us. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Let that sink in, man. Call somebody you hadn't talked to in a while. Say something positive to them. Put it out there. Positive energy. It comes back to you. Check out Landers Ford, people. Ask for Brad Bellamy, the general manager, LandersFordMemphis.com. If you didn't buy your last vehicle from Landers, you just paid too much. They're also at I-240 in Mount Moriah. All of our sponsors like Hewlett & Dunn, My Town Roofing, HempForPros.com, Hayes Garage, Tom Martin's Body Shop. They're all there. Sidelines.live for executive producer Brendan Martin. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for watching. Watch this.